We spend our lives chasing freedom, yet most of the time, we're walking paths that someone else quietly drew for us. We call our choices our own. But the world around us subtly decides what we see, what we want, and even what we believe. You've felt it. That quiet unease. That sense that you're moving through your life, but not fully awake inside it. This isn't new. 2,000 years ago, one book revealed the pattern we're still trapped in. Plato's The Republic isn't just philosophy. It's a blueprint for breaking through the invisible walls that hold your mind in place. Welcome to Beyond the Books. Let's step outside the cave. Justice. Most hear that word and picture laws, courtrooms, rules written in ink. Fairness as something handed down from the outside. A bargain between citizens, a set of punishments and rewards. But Plato begins somewhere quieter, more intimate. He asks a question most of us never pause to consider. What is justice? Really? Not in a courtroom. Not on the news. Not in the streets. But in you. And then he does something strange, almost frustrating. To understand justice in a single human soul. He says we first have to see justice in an entire city. Imagine the simplest city you can. No skyscrapers, no politics, no noise. Just life stripped to survival. People need food. They need shelter. They need clothing to keep them warm. So this simplest city has farmers, builders, and weavers. Each person does the work they are naturally suited for. No one tries to do everything. Plato calls this the principle of specialization. Justice begins when each part does the work it was made to do, and doesn't try to steal the work of the others. Now, pull this out of philosophy and drop it into your own life. Think about the last time your days felt chaotic. When you were stretched thin, pulled in a dozen directions, barely able to breathe. It happens because the parts of your life are colliding. You're trying to be your own builder, farmer, weaver, guard, and ruler. All at once, you're working, caretaking, chasing dreams, fixing problems, seeking approval. And every part of you is shouting for attention at the same time. Inner chaos often begins when the wrong part of you tries to lead the rest. Cities fall for the same reason. When merchants try to rule instead of trade. When soldiers write laws instead of defend, disorder takes over. Plato's city doesn't stay simple for long. As needs grow, the city evolves. New roles appear. He divides them into three. Producers, they create, they sustain, they meet the needs of life. Guardians, they protect, enforce, and respond to danger. Rulers, they step back, see the whole picture, and hold the vision for everyone else. Justice appears when each role fulfills its purpose, without trying to dominate the others. This isn't an abstract exercise. Plato is pointing to a truth about all complex systems, societies, companies, relationships, and yes, your own mind. Every system thrives when its parts stay in alignment. A company runs smoothly when employees, managers, and executives each play their role. But when frontline staff try to rewrite strategy, or executives micromanage every small task, confusion spreads. Disorder is almost always born from misalignment, not malice. So for Plato, justice isn't first about morality. It's about structure. Harmony happens when the right parts lead, and the wrong parts learn their place. Here's the insight most people miss. Plato isn't just talking about cities. He's talking about you. He draws a perfect parallel between the three classes of the city and the three parts of your own mind. The appetitive part, the cravings, the impulses, the part of you that wants comfort, pleasure, attention. Your inner producer, the spirited part, the will, the fight, the drive to defend or compete. Your inner guardian, the rational part, the quiet observer, the part of you that can step back, see the pattern, and choose long-term truth over short-term relief. Your inner ruler. And here's the pattern. When your appetites lead, life turns into an endless chase. You scroll for dopamine. You check for that text. You buy, you snack, you distract yourself. And yet, you're never full. When your spirited side dominates, life becomes a fight. You rehearse arguments in the shower. You defend yourself in conversations that never happened. You're always proving, always competing, always on edge. But when the rational part leads, when the quiet, steady observer calls the shots, your drives and desires fall into place. Your life becomes a well-ordered city. Inner justice isn't about being good. It's about no longer living at war with yourself. Think about how subtle this war can be. You promise yourself you'll rest, then feel guilty for not working. You speak up in a meeting and replay every word for hours after. You say you don't care what people think, but you check the comments anyway. I call this perception debt, the emotional interest you pay when the wrong part of you is chasing approval instead of peace. Plato's lesson is crystal clear. Disorder in the soul feels like exhaustion, overthinking, and self-argument. Justice feels like alignment, when each part of you knows its role. Why must the rulers, both in a city and in your mind, be philosophers? Because only they can see the whole. Most people make decisions from fragments. What feels good right now, what they fear will happen, what someone else will approve of. The philosopher sees the pattern behind the noise. They climb out of the cave. Plato's allegory of the cave is more than a story about truth. It's a map of emotional evolution. You begin chained in a cave, watching shadows flicker across the wall. You mistake the shadows for reality. Just as we mistake opinions, likes, and fleeting emotions for truth. Then, painfully, you turn. You see the fire, the source of the shadows. It stings your eyes. It feels uncomfortable. But you keep moving. You climb out of the cave, and for the first time, you see the sun. Reality in full light. The form of the good. The thing that aligns everything else. Most people never leave the cave because the shadows feel safer than the light. In your life, leaving the cave happens the moment your rational self stops outsourcing decisions to fear, craving, or borrowed opinions. Plato's pattern ripples through everything. When a society worships wealth, producers rule, and luxury softens the city. When it worships victory, guardians rule, and fear makes it tyrannical. When knowledge rules, the whole system stays in balance. The same rules live inside you. When craving leads, you chase without end. When anger leads, you fight without peace. When wisdom leads, all the noise finally settles. Here's the quiet truth. If you want to feel whole, you can't let the loudest part of you rule. You have to cultivate the part that sees the bigger picture. The part that can hold your desire, your fight, and your fear, without letting any one of them hijack your life. A well-ordered soul doesn't silence its desires. It teaches them how to serve instead of rule. Look around your life, your work, your relationships, your body, your attention. Every part of your life is a small city. Every city has roles. Disorder begins when the wrong role tries to become king. Peace begins when each part fulfills the purpose it was made for. Plato's Republic isn't just about politics. It's a manual for inner alignment. Justice isn't a law or a verdict. It's the feeling of finally living in harmony with yourself. And that's when you realize justice isn't something the world gives you. It's something your soul becomes. When the right part of you leads, the war inside you ends. What you believe shapes the world you live in. But most people never question the beliefs that rule them. Right now, write down one sentence that defines the kind of person you refuse to be ruled by anymore. Then, in the comments, share that sentence. And claim the shift you just made. Like this video. Subscribe to Beyond the Books. And if there's a book you want to see broken open, tell us below. This is Beyond the Books, where ideas stop being theory and start becoming who you are.